Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dayanand. I belong to Karnataka, so I don't have a surname. I am from the southern part of Karnataka, and I only have my initials, MS. So I'm Dayanand M S. I am currently the Vice Dean for Research, Goa Business School at Goa University. I'm also a professor here in the area of tourism, marketing, economics, and strategy. These are my areas which I handle as far as teaching and research is concerned. So more into tourism than into economics. My area of interest in tourism is small and medium enterprises. I did my Ph.D. in the area of small and medium enterprises in attractions business. It was a cross-cultural experience between Portugal and Goa. So my study involved small and medium enterprises in Portugal as well as in Goa in the attraction business. So that's my area of interest. I'm currently working on sustainable development goals and tourism, especially organizational responses to that. So this gave me a very good platform. COVID-19 has given a good platform to look at how people respond, how organizations respond, how organizations organize themselves. And that's one of the reasons why I said this is a very interesting area where we can start looking at, especially the industry, because this is the industry which is impacted the highest. So I'll start off my presentation. I have just about 9 slides. I'm not a very slide conscious person. It's something which I prefer to explain or prefer to look at points which come out through discussion. So if anyone has anything to say, you can either interject or probably use the chat box. I think that'll be easier. You can use the chat box for any kind of clarifications that you would like to have as we go on. So I'll start off my presentation, if that's okay with you. Shall I?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Is the screen visible?
Not yet, sir. Not yet.
Not as yet, sir.
Not yet. It is showing it's sharing. Let me share it again. I'm presenting the entire screen, so I don't know whether I should put
No,
it
that's
in.
all right. It should come.
Yeah, it should come in. I'm asking it to share, but it is somehow not sharing.
Sir, I think so. First, you probably need to click on the above one. Have you clicked there? And then the share will get activated. So when you present your screen,
I think it'll get activated. I think it'll get activated. Are you able to see it now?
Yes, it is now visible.
Yeah, now visible.
Yes.
There is probably a little bit of a lag here.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead with it. Okay. Okay. This let me just hide this thing. So we have all been talking about COVID-19, as they call it. But something which struck me right in the beginning was that when we were talking about this particular virus and its impact on the entire world, there was also talk about the kind of mutation that this particular virus would have, and also talk about how this virus is similar to flu. So the thought which struck me was that I don't think we are probably looking at it from a viewpoint of future. Hello. Is the screen visible?
No, sir. No, not anymore.
It's gone off again, sir.
So you'll have to start again.
I got a message.
Yes, somebody clicked the button and you have to stop and start again, sir. Somebody clicked at their own presentation in between.
Okay. So let me start sharing again.
Sunil, can you request everybody to switch off their mics, please?
Sure, ma'am.
Because
Sure, ma'am.
yeah.
Sure, ma'am.
So I guess I'm sharing again, right?
It's come on very well, sir.
It's come on very well. Okay, fine. Great. So as I was saying, people now need to look at it as some sort of a flu, which is there, for which we have not as yet found a vaccine. So when it is flu, it is going to stay here for a while. For all you know, it might stay here permanently, just like the other flu that we have, which keeps on coming in, the viral fever, which keeps on coming in. So this is another virus of that sort, till we find a vaccine for it, from which then we will be in a position to be free from. But till there's such a time, it's going to impact the way we live. And that's the reason why the future of the hospitality industry is going to be hit pretty hard in all senses of the word. Let's just, I'll just give a very brief outline about some of the statistical figures here. Looking at foreign tourist arrivals in India, which are just 11 million. The India Brand Equity Foundation, IBEF, had predicted an arrival of 30 million tourists, international tourists, in India by 2028. I'm not too sure, but this was done probably in year 2018. I'm not too sure if this particular thing stands, but 2028 is still far away and can still definitely create an atmosphere where 30 million people to India. There's no doubt about it. We had an outbound tourist statistics of 26 million. We had 26 million tourists going out of this country, Indians traveling outside in 2018. We had a staggering 1,855 million domestic tourists. That's 1.85 billion domestic tourists. Definitely it is, a single tourist is traveling more than once, and hence that is why we have domestic tourists more than the population of this country. It's 1.85 billion. We have a population of 1.3 billion. But it's interesting to look at the foreign tourist arrivals in India is just, it's less than half, it's less than 1%, just slightly more than 0.5% of the total domestic tourists in India. And that's one of the reasons why domestic tourism is going to be a sure shot hit. One reason why the entire hospitality industry can be reasonably comfortable is because of our love for travel within the country and the kind and size of population that we possess. Foreign exchange earnings from tourism in 2018 were at $28.6 billion US dollars. And total tourism receipts in India, which was calculated by World Travel and Tourism Council in 2018, is $240 billion. So you can see the difference there. The difference is all contributed to by the domestic tourists. And the entire $240 billion is about 9.2% of India's GDP. Something which is similar to that, which is being given as a complete package for COVID-19, as an economic revival package by the government just yesterday or day before yesterday. We have an employment of 42.6 million jobs in tourism, which is 8.1% of the total employment in the country. So we have a sizable number of jobs in the hospitality industry, rather than the tourism industry, tourism and hospitality industry. So what has happened since March 25th has been lockdown 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and a 4.0 on probably 18th, and then probably it may go all down to 5.0 and 6.0 as well, because ICMR is predicting the entire COVID pandemic in India to peak around June, July. So that would be something which we need to look at and be careful about as well. So I'm also assuming that there would be these 2 more lockdowns, which might ease with eased restrictions, of course, but a certain amount of strong measures, especially in containment zones, is something which we are looking at. And that is also something which is going to impact the way the hotel and restaurant business is going to be impacted post-lockdown 3. So lockdown 1, lockdown 2, and lockdown 3 has ensured closure of hospitality business to a large extent. Some relaxations for hotels and restaurants is there, but it's not that they are open for public to come. The industry is looking at a job loss of 38 million. That's 89.2% of the total employed in 2018. That's $42.6 million. 42.6 million people minus 38 million people. Job losses of 38 million is something which is a little bit difficult to digest, because you can't be losing out on such a huge number of people at one go. The impact probably is there for a few months till this lockdown period is reduced and the lockdown is taken away. But after that, these job losses would not exist to this extent. Definitely not up to 38 million. So there would definitely be jobs out there, because job loss of 38 million is going to be a huge amount of loss for the entire tourism industry. Things will start picking up, but they'll be slow. There is already a decrease of 30% in revenue per average room among the branded sector hotels. Decrease in revenue in branded sector hotels essentially means it's going to hit them very hard. Primarily because they need to keep these particular rooms in the same manner as they would if they were occupied. And hence the maintenance and all those costs are going to be pretty high for the branded hotel sector. There is a 4 lakh crore restaurant business in India, which with a projected loss of 50% probability, which would mean that the entire restaurant business would be around 2 lakh crores in India. I'm not too sure what would be the parameters for taking this. This has been there in India today as a prediction for the entire business, but people who lose out on businesses are not going to shut down. There will be some amount of money and revenue which will definitely be coming in for every business which is existing. So how do we look at post-lockdown behavior of the society? Because that is something which is going to impact the way we are going to recover from the COVID pandemic. So what would be the new normal for going out? Today, if you ask anyone whether they would like to go out, they would say definitely yes. I mean, keeping oneself locked down in your house or in the vicinity, even if there is a little bit of relaxation, is something which is not very, very comfortable. So people would definitely like to go out. There's no doubt about it. But how would they perceive the threat outside? Would people think it is more risky to go out? How do they assess that particular risk and how do they respond? There have to be studies on how people are going to look at these threat perceptions, especially of going to places which are crowded. How many people would go to their religious places once the lockdown gets reduced? How would the threat perception of a religious place be different from the threat perception of a restaurant or threat perception of a hotel or threat perception of a cinema? So these are all the kinds of threat perceptions which people will have when they start looking at the new normal of going out. And then they would respond accordingly. Would a mask and social distancing be the norm? Would it mean I go to a restaurant and I'm not able to sit close to my friends? Would it be a lone diner kind of an experience which people have even though they would be with a family or with friends in a restaurant setting? So these are all the kind of assessments which consumers will make before they make a choice of going out and enjoying themselves as they were prior to the lockdown. Then comes the question of eating out. What would be the new normal if eating out habits? They say that if you're locked down or if you're forced to be in a particular position or forced to do certain things for 40 days, it becomes a habit. So have our habits changed? Have people become experimental culinary artists at home because of the lockdown? Believe me, I am one of them. So I keep experimenting in the kitchen with whatever little I know and absolutely no professional knowledge at all. And there are many people like me who would be doing it and who would be wanting to cook at home. So these kind of experiences, would people try and make them into professionals? For example, maybe a certificate course, an online certificate course, which could be given by your school for someone who is at home, making these people home cooks, right? So that's something which can happen during this entire period of lockdown. And that is something which can also change the way you want to eat outside. So would you like to cook a restaurant kind of a dish at home? Because that's what everyone wants to do. So eating out habits, would they change? And if they do, what would be the new normal? The third part is in terms of spending on food. So what would be the spending on food in terms of the new normal? Would you spend as much as you are spending now? The average spending would definitely go down, but that doesn't mean that you will eat less. It just means that you will probably try and eat at home, which would also increase your food bill and the type of products that you would procure or choose to procure from the market. So that's the question which people would ask, home food versus restaurant food. Can I have home food? Can I have restaurant food? Can I have both? What would be the kind of proportions? Do I eat less of restaurant food in the restaurant? Do I eat more of restaurant food at home in terms of takeaways? This is going to be society's behavior post-lockdown in terms of deciding on what kind of food I would love to eat. Given the 40, 50 days lockdown period that's going to be here, given the fact that restaurant businesses are closed, a large number of people would yearn for those dishes which they were earlier eating. But then, how is it that you're going to have that particular flavor for yourself? It's going to be there at the restaurant? Is it going to be the same kind of ambience, or would you probably choose home ambience as well? So, new normal of new normal of travel and stay outside. There was news here that the Rajdhani Express from Goa to Delhi is going to be started from 17th of May. Within 12 hours, the news came that all trains are going to be stopped till 30th June. No trains except the Shramik Express is going to run. We already have news that air travel is going to start from 17th of May. That too with a lot of new normals, which is there in terms of being checked, having to answer a questionnaire, and then travel. So would people travel, given the fact that you already have travel fatigue because of the kind of stress that is going to be there? Is it risky to travel by air? Definitely, as compared to other modes of transport, because you're in a cloistered kind of an atmosphere for some time, and hence the chances of virus spread are pretty high. So how do you ensure that this threat perception of travel is taken care of? Stay outside. Will you stay in unfamiliar places? What would be the new normal if I have to stay? For example, if I have to attend a conference, which is a physical conference, now things are changing into webinars. But if it's a physical conference or if it's a physical consulting assignment that I have to do and I have to go someplace, would I be comfortable staying in a hotel, or would I probably call up a distant relative of mine whom I've never been in touch and then tell him or her that I'm going to be there and it would be nice if I could stay with them? Is it going to change the family and social dynamics that we as a country had not seen in the past? We were more nuclear family oriented, very less of going out and staying with friends and relatives. So visiting friends and relatives, is that going to be the new norm of travel and stay outside? Stay outside, basically. Traveling, of course, is something which will have to depend on the way public transportation would work in this country. what would be the impact on firms in the entire hospitality business? Firm revenues are definitely going to be impacted sharply in the short run. A large number of, for example, here in Goa, we have restaurants which are open only for takeaways. There is no setting of customers coming in and being seated and being served. So covers are not on in any of the restaurants here, but they are open for takeaways. Takeaways are not going to give them the kind of revenues that they seek. So high fixed costs of restaurants are going to make them that much more vulnerable to losses in the short term. They'll be able to pick it up later on, but in the short term, the losses are going to be quite substantial. Post-lockdown, this is something which is going to be the mainstay. There'll be intense competition once the lockdown is reduced. A larger number of these people would be having difficulties running the show post-lockdown. And because quantum of spending by people will not immediately increase, total amount of revenue generated in the industry will get reduced, while the number of people who are in the business may not decrease that sharply. So you will have a larger number of people competing for a smaller pie of the revenue, and that is going to create intense competition. So how would these organizations compete? Based on what would they compete in the post-lockdown situation is one of the biggest aspects which needs to be understood by the industry per se and by firms also. So would the new competition be in terms of who has got the best chef? Would it be the best service? Would it be the best kind of dishes? Would it be best ambience? Would it be best health, safety? One doesn't know what are the kind of parameters that customers are going to see once the lockdown ends. Loss of jobs in the hospitality sector could lead to higher training costs with local talent. Now, a large number of people working in the hospitality sector are from outside the states, wherever they are, to a sizable extent. We have a huge, in Goa at least, there is a huge number of people who are there from UP, Bihar, and Orissa who are in the hospitality sector. Now, if they are going to go back, you're going to have shortage of labor. You'd have to look at local labor. You'll have to train the local labor. And because of costs, training costs are definitely going to increase, but because of retention of human resource would be one of the biggest issues. You're going to have a higher human resource cost, which is there. Till such a time that we are able to get back labor mobility in this country, which somehow doesn't seem to be so sure in the near future. And that's also one of the reasons why the industry is slated to recover in about 12 to 18 months. That's the kind of time frame that industry experts are looking at. 12 to 18 months is a long time for any business to survive unless it has got deep pockets. So survival of some of the firms will be in question. They might look for alternative businesses to venture in, alternative entrepreneurial ventures which they might be looking at other than the food business. But those who have invested a huge amount will take a beating if they want to quit, because higher fixed costs essentially act as a barrier to exit for these people. But at the same time, continuing with a loss kind of a situation for a year or more is also going to burn a very big hole in their pockets. And that's also one of the reasons why the industry is trying to look at kind of packages for relief for both MSMEs as well as organizations in the higher branded areas of the industry. So if we look at the restaurant business in the pre and post lockdown scenario, you will have probably maybe 75 to 80% of the cover being taken up here in this green kind of a position, with about 25% of the covers not being taken up here. You also would have some amount of takeaways here, people who would probably order from the restaurant in the pre-lockdown scenario. Post-lockdown scenario, a lesser number of people would be wanting to go out. This is something which definitely is a worrying scenario. You have space which is unutilized in the restaurant here. Covers are unutilized. In one sense, if you do not have enough labor, this is a blessing in disguise because then you don't require that much of labor. But when you have a takeaway pie which is quite large and substantial, you would definitely need people who would be in a position to go and deliver the products which you can prepare here. So your kitchen would definitely be busy. Your service area would not be that busy. The service area would probably then be outside the restaurant space that you have and into the society. And how you are going to look at changing yourself from a service within the space service-oriented institution or organization into an outside service organization, because the competencies are different, the skill sets that are required are different, and the kind of human resource that is available is different. So you need to look at how best you will be able to adapt to this kind of a change, and then adapt as quickly as possible. Those who have been in the takeaway business know that they already know what exactly is happening as far as the takeaways are concerned, and hence might be in a better position to look at adapting to that as compared to restaurants which were not in the takeaway business. So recovery models, when we look at the recovery models, we look at, I have identified just three short-term recovery models. One is a pure takeaway model with no recovery cost, or with no cover cost and large coverage of clients. Purely a takeaway model where you probably do not even look at having a space meant for people to come in and dine in-house. Now, the second model that we're looking at is with reduced covers, that is just a small space with low costs to run, and also optimizing your takeaway business. So that is something which the organizations might do. This is the second model that I'm coming through with. And then there's the third model, which people with monetary resources who would be in a position to invest in fine dining with all the works thrown in for safety, hygiene, and health, because that's something which organizations, that's something which consumers would be looking at, especially when you're looking at safety, hygiene, health, when you're looking at nutrition. These are all the things which would definitely be on top of the mind as far as consumers are concerned once lockdown ends and they would like to go to a restaurant. So whether there is social distancing available in that fine dining restaurant, whether there is health measures which are properly undertaken there, whether there is hygiene, whether there is safety, how do they ensure, for example, before lockdown 2, even during lockdown 1, initial part of lockdown 1, many of the malls in Bangalore were not closed. Many of the big bazaars and Reliance Fresh stores were not closed. But even then, I've seen Reliance actually using the thermal gun to screen passengers for temperature, to screen customers for temperature before they are allowed inside the Reliance Fresh store. So some of these kind of measures would also instill a certain amount of confidence in the customers about the intentions and about the capabilities of these restaurants or hotels to take care of their customers' needs. So, but that definitely means that there is a good amount of investment which the fine dining restaurants will need to have, or restaurants which want to get into that particular area will need to have before they open their doors for everyone to come in and lure customers away. But as I said, a smaller pie and greater competition running in, the levels of competition and the platforms for competition will change. Now, it is not just the food and taste that matter. It is also now the safety, hygiene, and health that would matter if people would want to go out and enjoy a restaurant meal in a restaurant ambience. Same goes for hotels as well. Hotels also will have to make changes to the way they operate. We have to give more emphasis on safety and hygiene as compared to what they were doing till now. Maybe they were doing all the things right, but with threat perceptions of this kind being there in the mind of the consumer, they should be like Caesar's wife, above suspicion, not just seen, but seem to be also taking care of safety and hygiene. So long-term models is something which is a very big question mark because, as they say, everything changes in the long term. So one of the long-term aspects which I think is going to impact very heavily, one of the parameters, is technology. Today we are talking of technology in restaurants and hotels. I have heard that there are already robots which are waiting upon customers. Not a very nice thing to do because it's an impersonal touch you cannot get, but as a novelty, yes. But when it comes down to safety, probably much better. The robot may not, definitely, not may not, the robot definitely will not have a coronavirus. So it's much easier, much more safer to be served by robots. But that would mean loss of jobs, which is one thing which has been listed out there as one of the threats. But that's not necessarily that's going to happen in every restaurant which is going to be taken. Human beings are going to go out. So what kind of technologies would be there then? Would digitization improve? I would not like to touch the menu card. So can I have a digital menu which is voice activated? Would restaurants be willing to invest in that kind of technology so that it's easier? I do not want to interact with a human being giving him or her the order. So if I can order and confirm my order digitally using voice, and if it reaches the kitchen directly, then my plates can be served to me either by the server or by an automated mechanism as in the case of robots. So I am trying to look at minimum amount of human interaction in restaurants and hotels by including technology as a safety measure. That leaves actually a void in terms of personal touch. There is no doubt about it. But how much of personal touch is anyone willing to sacrifice for safety, especially given the kind of experience of COVID-19 till now? What happens if there is a vaccine by this year end? What if I am vaccinated? Does it mean that my threat perceptions, I will throw everything out of the window? All of us are vaccinated against chickenpox, right at, in the childhood. And those who have been vaccinated get it at least once. You get the chickenpox, or you get a variant of the chickenpox, which is herpes. So this kind of thing is bound to happen at some or the other point. All of us at risk, whether it is lockdown or it's no lockdown. This is here to stay. COVID-19 is here to stay. It's just that what I do to armor myself against it and how much of risk I'm willing to take when I'm going to indulge in activities which are, in all probabilities, giving rise to the risk of getting infected. So technology, in terms of looking at trying to increase safety levels in the restaurants. And how would technology imbibing be a part of virtual entities? Virtual entities like Swiggy, like Zomato, or any of these institutions, organizations who would be in a position to take care of a large percentage of your business. So if you're looking at takeaways and you don't have the skill sets, you're going to outsource those skill sets to someone else and ensure that you can not just survive, you can also retain your brand strength. So how would you actually do that in terms of technologies? Would the order be taken by the agent after coming to the store as it is being done now, or would it be directly to the Swiggy entity, and he knows what is to be taken, and automatically, right now you order with Swiggy, with a specific restaurant, and the order goes there. But it then directly go through the virtual entity. So the virtual entity also knows where exactly what kind of orders are there, and hence automatically they are in a position to come and pick up the order and deliver it to you. The third one is in terms of technology imbibing in accrediting agencies. Normally we have a fear, especially now with this pandemic thing going on. The fear is in terms of how much do I trust? Whom do I trust? How do I trust? It is here that accrediting agencies come into picture. Organizations, institutions like TripAdvisor or any of these kind of agencies, which are not necessarily accrediting agencies, but are agencies which are going to give their stamp of approval. Now that is something which almost all hotels and restaurants would now look at, kind of stamp of approval of some professional organization. So how would these organizations function? Would they be in a position to accredit based on all factors associated with technology, whether you have robots working or whether you have technologically savvy, how technology is creating an impact on your business currently? These accrediting agencies would then also have a say in who gets what share of the pie, which is already a reduced revenue pie post-lockdown. This I'm looking at it in terms of a long-term kind of an assessment. The second aspect or parameter, that is basically experience creations. I've mentioned experience co-creation because hospitality is a service and services are produced and consumed at the same time. Now, given these kind of space distances which are there between people who produce the service and people who consume that particular service, we are looking at customer involvement. How involved can a customer be in the entire experience co-creation? When I say customer involvement, I'm basically looking at, are you involving the customer in the entire process? How involved is a customer as far as your business is concerned? Like, for example, you have different dishes which you prepare in a restaurant. Has the customer been involved in it in terms of decision? What kind of dishes are to be made? I'll give you a very small example. I used to work in Colgate-Palmolive years ago. I was working in Mumbai. In Mumbai, there is a particular area called Matunga, which is famous because a large number of South Indians stay there. The sale of shampoos is huge in that particular area. Now, you might ask me why. We had a very simple reason that South Indian women would wash their hair consistently and frequently. Hence, the shampoo market was substantially large there. So any new venture which would be there, or any new variant which we would come out with, would be tested out there as well, because that's the market which we're looking at. So am I involving, after knowing who the customer is, what the customer wants, in terms of my product portfolio? The second one is in terms of customer engagement. In a service presumption process, if you can involve and engage the customer, it becomes extremely interesting. For example, customer engagement has been there through many of the pizza chains, where you can order for your pizza. You can probably ask what kind of toppings they want. You can choose the way the pizza is made. And on top of that, they give you chili flakes and oregano to season it out just before you're eating, along with tomato sauce. Can I have customer engagement much more than that? I remember for a year I was in Portugal while I was doing my Ph.D. and I had a friend from Canada. She was a non-vegetarian and I am a pure vegetarian. We would go to a local pizzeria and have pizza. And he would make pizza from scratch. So that would be a wait of about 35 minutes for us before our order gets fulfilled. And he would make half the pizza vegetarian, half the pizza non-vegetarian, with toppings of her choice of non-veg and toppings of my choice of vegetarian. And it was a service which was very interesting because he never had that kind of a request. Portugal is a fairly non-vegetarian country. He never had this kind of a request, but the moment the request came, he offered to experiment with that and came out with it. There was no way in which they would mix up. So he had ensured that. Now, what I'm looking at is customer engagement in presumption, in its creation of the product per se. That's engaging the customer in the entire process of producing and consumption of that service. The third thing is in terms of customer delight. Today we are talking about delighting the customer in some or the other way. I'm sure all of us would have used Amazon. All of us would have received parcels from Amazon. The Amazon delivery agent is just like one of us. Okay. Now, it's only during Christmas that you think of Santa Claus. Santa Claus also is no different from Amazon delivery agent, delivering the gifts on Christmas Eve. But the whole concept of Santa Claus and bringing in a certain amount of experience for the customer is something which is going to go a long way as far as the restaurant business is concerned in the long run. People would like to have experiences in terms of takeaways. What's the experience of a takeaway? I'll give you a very short example as well. I order a pizza from a local pizzeria here. He comes and delivers it. I give him the money. If it's by card, it's absolutely fine. If it is cash, he's come prepared for both. He has the exact change with him because he knows, or he at least assumes, that I will not be having the change, and I'll give him a note which he has to break down. He brings out the exact change with him because he knows that this is the kind of a monetary transaction that's going to happen between the customer and me. To some extent, I am pleased because I don't have to bother about this whole concept of "अरे नहीं साहब change नहीं है, मेरे पास भी नहीं है, आपके पास भी नहीं है, बाद में दे देना, बाद में ले लूँगा." This kind of a scenario is just completely taken care of. This is a very short thing. It's a very small thing also, but it leaves a particular mark. It leaves a space which is created by the producer or the service provider in the mind of the customer. Now, these are small things which can be delight. Which can create customer delight. Apart from the fact that you can do a whole lot of things with the products that you produce and give out as takeaways or the kind of rooms and the room services that are being produced in the hotel industry. Okay, so this was something which I had as a part of the discussion that I would like to have. So I have ended my slides here. So this is just a Dev Bore Karu, which is a way of thanking in Goa. This is specific to Goa, which means God bless you. The way of thanking in Goa is completely different from that of the rest of the country. Goa, of course, is different. But we say Dev Bore Karu because we wish God, or we pray to God to bless you. धन्यवाद दुआओं से मांगी दुआ करते हैं और we wish you very healthy, wise and peaceful life to one and all. Thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, sir. That was Indeed, a lot of information, and I think so the way you carried it out was very beautifully. You ensured that it remains with us for a very long time. I'm a person who speaks very fast, so I think I can take. So I think, I mean, the way you did it at such a nice pace, it is something that will stay with us. And maybe now, yes.
Thank you. I was just wondering. I was looking at the screen. This is normally an experience which happens when you're looking at distancing, and then using a technology which is relatively in person as compared to face to face. So you don't tend to see the reaction in the eyes of the recipient. So that's what.
But I think so the facial expression still says it all. I think so. Yeah, because we just did a conference the other day on 9th May, an online conference, and we had nearly 11 speakers from internationally, and everybody. And I think so the way we connected, and obviously I think so the way you carried it out, the pace and everything is something which is, it was more like we were listening and we were summarizing.
Okay. Great.
So that is what I found it at personal level. So maybe open it to some questions.
Thank you. I'm opening it for questions which people would like to ask. Absolutely no issues on that. I would also like you people to give a feedback on what needs to be done more, on what aspects probably you think are important. So please feel free to give your comments.
No, I think we have really kind of, brought about especially the restaurants, what they would do and what different facets. Usually people were just talking about one, but then you also put a food for thought in the thing when you started to say that, like 40 days, maybe the habits of people will change, and the way with So I think this was something, which doesn't come up because there has been so many webinars and so many point of views, and everybody is talking about things will change and we'll do this, we'll do that, and all those things. But nobody probably, kind of stopped and thought, is it what the customer is wanting? Also, the change, So that is something which I really found was a different angle to the whole story. Everybody, like as I said in the other day in the conference, everybody was like, we'll do this, assuming that the customer will be the old customer in pre-COVID time. But with your thoughts, probably it came out, yes, there would be a lot of changes in the customer itself. Would they want to go out? Maybe they are not looking for hotels. They will kind of, as you mentioned, they would call their long distance relatives that they can stay with them. I think so that kind of sense of security, I think so that is something also which a customer, maybe you have kind of thought about it. I feel, a lot of people are in a rush to open their businesses and they're assuming that the customer has not changed, which is something that you should also think about, that there would be a marked difference in the kind of customer that they will have now, inside. So I think so that was a very great angle, and probably I think so you should put it in some paper or something, because it gives an entirely different angle. It's the first time I've heard about this angle, in spite of the fact that there has been death by webinars. We are into webinars day in, day out. So,
somebody was commenting that the total number of webinars far outweigh the number of COVID cases in India.
So it's, so I think so this is something even I would kind of, mull upon it and kind of, create some thoughts about it, but that's definitely use it in my future conversations now, because this is some angle which people, at least in Delhi NCR, they're not looking at it at all. Or maybe, as you say, Goa is different and it's more peaceful and people can think more and other things than being a tourist-oriented place. So I think so. Anybody who would want to ask a question, Sunil, can you please moderate the question and answer session?
Sure, ma'am. Right here.
Dayanand sir, I had one question which is concerned with the travel. Now, travel is either desirable or necessary. Definitely, there's no scope of any desirable, because in desirable you have tourism and various other things which have shut their doors now. Travel agencies are down, the carriers are down, everybody is down. And now the situation is so bad that even the necessary travel is not happening.
True.
So once past COVID, maybe the necessary travel might not open entirely, as you have yourself said, maybe 10%, 20%. But a large chunk of the travel industry lies in tourism. So when do you think, sir, maybe how long that will take to get revived? Because we see that, as you have yourself also said, that COVID is here
Very
to
true.
stay.
Very true. So now the first thing which hit me when we started talking about tourism was, if I open the border and I travel, the first thing I will be doing, or which the government will be doing with me, is to quarantine me either at home or in, if I test positive, in the designated quarantine place.
Okay.
Right? So what does it mean? It means for 14 days I'm stuck. This quarantine time is 14 days. So does tourism mean that if I want to go to Delhi tomorrow, maybe to attend a business meeting, which is not happening online, does it mean that if I test negative, I will have to stay in this place for 14 days, even though the meeting might be for just one day? Till such a time that our quarantine requirements are done away with, I don't think tourism has got any kind of a revival unless you go to a place as a tourist for a minimum of 2 weeks, so that all your entire quarantine time is spent inside the hotel.
Yeah.
That I don't definitely wouldn't be seeing that as tourism, right? It's more of going from one jail to another jail. So this is something which is going to be a point to consider, primarily because just yesterday Greece has decided to allow only travelers from UK into Greece without the quarantine period. So which means either they have very strong testing mechanism by which they can see that the person is tested negative and is not a threat if he or she is allowed into their society, and that's what they're going to do. So they would be allowing tourists to come in, not being there on quarantine. So they will come there maybe for a week or so and then go back. So those kind of facilities are being organized now by Greece, and Greece is the first country to open up its borders for tourism officially. So that's what they're doing. There's a lot of work which is happening on the tourism front, because their entire economy is dependent on tourism to a large extent. Can't afford to keep it shut.
Yeah.
So travel in India, tourism in India, I don't think for the next 6 months things are going to change.
Mhm. I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, that's very good. Thank you. But how is it going to affect the education on tourism and hotel management? Because we see that by this time normally we used to have a lot of admissions come in, but it's trickling very, very slowly now. What do you experience? How's it in Goa, sir?
I think the only thing which is happening is that there is a delay. People are not going to let go of education, because education is an investment for them. It's a long-term investment. It's not that I am looking at a 15-day or a 3-month course which I am doing and then I'm getting into it. So people will definitely look at education. Only question is, what kind of education are you looking? If people are very, very sure about being in the hotel management industry, because it is all pervasive. It is all pervasive. And I'm not just looking at in terms of jobs. I think there is a huge amount of potential for entrepreneurs in the tourism and restaurant business. Food and travel will not go away. Definitely not go away, neither in the near future nor in the future. Unless some pharmaceutical company comes in and says that आपका ब्रेकफास्ट लंच डिनर चाय उसके लिए गोलियां बनाएंगे और वो खाते रहिए. स्वाद भी आ जाएगा, nutrition भी मिल जाएगी. Unless this happens, food business is not going to go anywhere out. It is definitely there to stay. So people would certainly like to have these skills. This is a skill set kind of a program, right? So people will definitely come. The challenges will be, how do we look at in the short run? How do we look at giving skills, practice to the students who are seeking it? Food production, food and beverage service, your what do you say? Your
Front office,
front office and the other one, housekeeping businesses. These are all things where practice is necessary. More so with food production and food and beverage service. That's something where talent is there. But supposing you are able to, you may not be able to have all the professional equipments that are there at home, but people can then definitely dabble in their kitchen at home in terms of practice. So if you're going to ask people to ask the students to prepare a particular dish, you could do that. They could do that in their respective kitchens, and you could be giving instructions to them in terms of how it is done. They can experiment with that. That's just one possibility I'm looking at. So the institution then will start spreading into the kitchens of students rather than in a single kitchen where we normally do as a part of normal workforce. But that's in the short run. In the long run, I don't think things would change to a drastic level.
One thing definitely, sir, that something which is keeping us alive is the Wi-Fi and the internet. It's keeping us in touch with the rest of the world, and keeping in touch with the students, and vice versa. And I hope it carries on like this. And
this is bandwidth and internet facilities are something which are going to be strongly impacted, and technology is definitely going to take care of that, because right now there was talk also of some of the government offices now functioning online rather than through government offices. Organizations are already taking a decision to work to a large extent from home. In fact, even we are looking at post this entire lockdown period. Certainly, a certain percentage of the classes could be online classes as compared to all 100% classes. Yeah. This is bound to be there. This kind of a two type of model of learning is going to be there. Online and offline learning both would go hand in hand in the future.
Good. Well, that's what I have to ask. Anybody else has any question?
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Yeah.
So it was great listening.
Good evening.
Sir. It was a lot of information. So one thing you talked about was job losses, which is going to be a great issue. Like UK government has introduced furlough, which means actually they are paying 50 to 60% to the employees for the private companies. Like we have a lot of offices in UK, and we have a couple of offices of ours also, and we have to just apply for the application, and they are going to pay for the salaries. And what do you think that this kind of program comes in India, should the government will be starting, and will it be successful? Because 27 million of jobs are straight away at risk due to this COVID-19.
Right. So what you're talking about is a short-term package to ensure that people are not stranded as far as financial requirements are concerned. Am I right? So as a short-term program, as well as a short-term measure, you would be in a position to do that. Governments want to do that. But the question is, the major question is this only going to be a short-term effect? What happens after 2 months? What will you do in those 2 months? You may definitely be not in a position to get work, right? And hence you will probably look at the government bailing you out for 2 months. But during these 2 months of the lockdown, or immediately after the lockdown ends, 2 months, nobody's going to hire. hiring is now something which people will put on the back burner unless people start looking at local talent. Okay?
Yes.
For example, what the Prime Minister said the other day in terms of Atmanirbharta, we are looking at localizing the content of the product to a large extent, which essentially means that you look at local talent available, local workforce, because most of the migrant workforce has gone back home. Getting them back is going to be a pain, at least in the short run. Long term, yes, they might probably come back. But the question is of survival in the long term. And these kind of measures in the short term can only help in the short term if you're opening up the entire economy as it was earlier. One of the reasons why the US is not worried too much about the economy is they're wanting the economy to return to normalcy as early as possible. They're saying COVID is here to stay. We're trying to find a vaccine to it, but that doesn't mean that businesses have to suffer. People will suffer, and people in US have suffered like nobody's business. Their death toll is probably higher than the overall COVID cases in India. Death toll alone. So that's something which is different. Their viewpoint is different. But all over the world, we cannot keep locked down for a longer period of time. In the short run, organizations can or governments can make such kind of a move to help people in the short run. In a country like India, 130 billion, all of us will have to chip in with 2 days salary, 3 days salary if that is going to happen. Because otherwise the government is not going to get money from somewhere. It's not out of the way. And as a society, we are doing it. As a society, we are far more philanthropic than others. Far more philanthropic. It's just that we don't come about our philanthropy anywhere.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Welcome. Yeah. Any other questions? Fine with that.
I think so. They're still thinking about what all you have said.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
yeah, it was a very thought-provoking address, So I think so they have to think a lot. But so at this point, I'll thank you so much, sir. And it was a great connection with you. Yes, and further also, I would definitely trouble you with more appropriate things now. The way I have understood the way your thinking goes, and the depth of your knowledge, I think so at more appropriate times, even when we are into a face-to-face thing. Otherwise, also, we can always go back to the internet and digital learning also.
Sure.
And
sure.
ever you drop by in Delhi, it would be a pleasure to host you in our.
Definitely, ma'am. It was wonderful interacting with you. I could feel the kind of camaraderie that you have amongst yourselves, which is a very wonderful thing. We have the similar kind of interaction between our faculty members here, and it's really very nice. Hope all my faculty members also would get in touch with. I think one or two of them had definitely logged in here. So they will also get in touch with you. You could discuss things.
Definitely, definitely, we will do that. Yes, and if ever any of us drop by to Goa, we know we come.
Please, just let me know.
To come and see your university. That would be
anytime. It would be wonderful. Okay.
Thank you so very much, sir, for taking our time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sri.
Bye, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you.